If not for the driving rain and heavy pack on his back, it might have been a fun trip, like riding a zip line on vacation. 2 men rushed to greet him as he landed on the opposite shore and helped him off the line. The radio attached to his shoulder crackled. "I'm sending Hannah and Sherry over next, so get ready," Danny said. Paramedic Hannah Richards and former Captain Sherry Stevens arrived in quick succession. They were greeted by a growing crowd as additional campers gathered beside the creek. Zach followed Sherry and Hannah into a chaos of wet and anxious campers. Dogs barked, children cried, and everyone seemed to be talking at once. Everyone was muddy, wet, and frightened. "We woke up and there was water running through our tent," one man told Zach. "My oldest boy left the tent to go pee and he almost fell in the river. There's a tree down on an RV at the back of the campground," another man said. "I think someone might be hurt." "My husband was hurt by a falling branch," a woman said. She hefted a toddler on her hip. The child, a girl judging by the pink barrettes in her hair, stared at Zach, her thumb in her mouth. "He's over by our trailer, but someone needs to look at him." Hannah keyed her radio. "We've got some terrified kids over here," she said, "and some of the adults aren't in much better shape. Apparently a tree came down on an RV and there may be injuries or people trapped inside. We've got other injuries from falling trees. We need people over here to administer first aid. And a couple of people to ride with the kids back across wouldn't hurt." "I'll send people over, and we'll start the process of getting people over to this side," Danny said. "Zach, start gathering people who are ready to get out of here," Sherry said. "Make sure they know they've got to ride across that line, so only a small backpack or a bag that can carry in one hand can go with them. Everything else has to stay here." "I can't leave my dogs," one woman wailed. "We'll get the dogs out too," Sherry said. 10 minutes later, Zach was sending the first of the campers back across the line. As the woman started across the water, Hannah approached Zach, carrying a blanket-wrapped small child. "This is Micah," she said. "He's 3 and he's suffering from hypothermia. I've tucked some hot packs in around him, but he needs to get to someplace warm and dry ASAP. I'm sending his mom right behind you." She put the child into Zach's arms. Zach stared down into a pair of frightened brown eyes. Micah had his thumb stuffed into his mouth and said nothing, though tears, or maybe raindrops, slid down his flushed cheeks. "It's okay, baby." A petite woman, dark hair plastered to her head, stood on tiptoe and stroked Micah's face. Then she looked up at Zach. "Don't drop him," she said. Zach tightened his grip on the child. "I won't." Traveling back across the river was much slower than the original traverse, since it required being towed uphill by volunteers on the other side. Halfway across, Micah began to squirm and wail. Zach held tight and tried to talk soothingly, though he was terrified he would drop the squirming child, despite them being clipped into safety lines. He sagged with relief when fellow team member Carrie Andrews stepped forward to take the boy from him. Then he stepped to one side a few moments later to allow Micah's mom to reunite with her son. The next hour was a blur of traveling back and forth across the flooded creek. The rain stopped and the sun came out, and Zach began to sweat in the heavy rain gear. But it was too much trouble to divest himself of pack, life vest, and harness, so he left everything on and focused on the work. He carried another child across, transported medical gear, and escorted a frantic, snapping golden retriever who was determined not to be harnessed to anything. Zach was only able to get the dog to cooperate when someone produced a packet of beef jerky, which Zach fed bit by bit to the trembling dog all the way back across the water. After the dog, there were only 2 more adults to get back across, and they didn't need Zach's help. He shed the harness and layers of gear and drank a bottle of water someone handed him. A tall blonde woman he hadn't seen before, one of the campers, he supposed, moved through the volunteers. "Thank you so much," she said to each one. When she got to Zach, she took his hand. "You were amazing." "I was happy to do it," Zach said. It felt good to help other people, to make a difference. She smiled, showing dimples. "I'm Janie. What's your name?" "Zach. Zach Gregory." "Well, Zach Gregory, you and the other volunteers are real heroes," she said, then surprised him with a hug. He stepped back, a little embarrassed, but also pleased.